Hello, boys. Today we are talking about how to find a commitment-oriented man. And the reason for why I wanted to have this conversation is because in a lot of my one-on-one coaching sessions, a lot of the comments that I receive and the discussions that I have online are usually surrounded around how you can find a commitment monogamous man. And here's the truth of the matter. Relationships are subjective, right? They're inherently subjective, which means every person is going to be attracted to a different relationship structure depending on their own personal preferences, right? And it would seem to be, or it appears like, monogamous commitment-oriented men are a rare breed nowadays. But the interesting thing is that there are several surveys that have been conducted by dating apps and dating websites, and I even conducted my own surveys in regards to people's preferences when it comes to relationship structure. So monogamy, polyamory, open, and other options. And the highest percentage of preferred relationship structure was monogamy. So then the question becomes, how do you attract a commitment-oriented man? So I kind of spent some time and sat down with my computer and just kind of wrote some notes based on my personal experience, based on my experience being a love and self-esteem coach for 4 years now, working with gay and bisexual men. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about was you got to be real with yourself, right? And what I mean by that is if you are somebody who thinks you should be in a monogamous relationship because that is what you have been conditioned or taught to believe, it's really important that you take a step back and reflect on your own personal belief systems, your values, your core values. And I want to be very clear here because I know some people are going to jump all over this and say that I'm trying to brainwash people. And no, that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is, as an adult now, putting yourself out on the dating market or in the dating market, if your core values or your belief systems are different than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's really important for you to sit and evaluate that. And the reason for why I say that is because intentionality is key when it comes to dating. So if you tell yourself that you are meant to be in a monogamous relationship because that is what you were taught, that's what you were taught by your religious community, that's what you've been taught by society, that's what you were taught by your parents, albeit if it's something that's very important to you and you feel very connected to monogamy, totally makes sense why that's something that you would pursue. But if you haven't really given it thought in a lot of over the years, and you're just putting yourself out there and you find that you have failed relationship after failed relationship after failed relationship, it's time to take a step back and evaluate your preferences, your belief systems, your core values surrounding relationships. Monogamy may not be something that you necessarily want, but you've been too ashamed or you've been too scared to admit that. So you commit to somebody because you feel that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And then a few months into the relationship or a couple of years into the relationship, you find yourself restless or unhappy or not fulfilled. And you start to explore outside of the relationship. Now, that's also layered in the sense that there are multiple reasons for why that could be happening, right? There's a lack of communication. There's a breaking of trust. There's a lack of intimacy. So it may not necessarily mean that you're not fit for a monogamous relationship, but it's still very important to take that into consideration before you put yourself out there and date and tell people that what you are looking for is a monogamous relationship. Because I cannot tell you how many times I have heard clients tell me that they start dating somebody, that person says that they want to be in a monogamous relationship, and then 3 months later they want to invite somebody into the relationship, right? So just be open and honest from the jump, right? That's my opinion on that. The second thing is you want to set your intentions. So what does that mean? I'm literally just going to read from the notes that I put here. And it says, if your intention is to be in a committed relationship, it's important to set realistic expectations for yourself and the people you date. Unfortunately, you will meet a lot of people who are not commitment oriented, but don't lose hope. The right guy is out there for you. So what are some realistic expectations, right? I think some realistic expectations, for example, is having clear communication as a priority within the relationship itself, because that is a fundamental in any relationship. I think a realistic expectation is investing time and effort into building a strong foundation for the relationship to be able to grow. I think a realistic expectation is when your partner or the person you are dating promises something, that they keep their word. Because congruency is key here, right? And what congruency means is your words and your actions match up. So they may say to you, oh yeah, totally, I can't wait to see you tonight. And then they flake and they bail on you. And this is a consistent pattern that you have noticed with this person. So I think a realistic expectation is consistency. What else here? Let's see. Emotional availability. Somebody being emotionally available when they're dating. You know, for me, it's like, what's the point of dating and putting yourself out there if you are not willing to be emotionally available? If you're not willing to be emotionally available, completely understandable, and I get it, but there are different resources and venues that you should be exploring. You should not be exploring serious dating, because if the hope and the expectation is that somebody will pull you out of your shell, that is a responsibility that you are putting on somebody else that they don't deserve and that they don't need. I get it. Not everybody is perfect. None of us are perfect. And I do believe that the right person can bring out the best behaviors and the best traits and the best elements of your personality. But if you are expecting somebody to save you from a state of isolation or desperation or loneliness, it's a recipe for a toxic dynamic, in the sense that there is going to be a level of attachment there that is unhealthy. So making sure that you are emotionally available if you are going to put yourself out there and date. And that means that that's some work that you have to do yourself. That's some work that that other person has to do as well, for you guys to be able to come together and be vulnerable and to build a deeper connection with one another. The third thing here is actions over words. So when I talk about congruency, it's once again, in the simplest terms, words and actions matching up, right? They are congruent. But more importantly here is actions over words. It is very easy for somebody to say, oh yeah, I'm super into you, or 100% I want to invest the time and the effort into getting to know you, or I want to spend the rest of my life with you, or I want to build a life with you. It's the actions that follow those words that make the difference. And here's the thing. If you have had really bad dating experiences in the past, it is possible that you may be operating with a confirmation bias, which means you are looking for flaws, errors, mistakes, things that validate your fears pertaining to dating. Be very careful with that, because people are allowed to make mistakes. Life happens. Things happen. What's important here is that person's ability to communicate with you and be clear and authentic and transparent about what is happening when it is happening. The second thing here is if they do not habitually make the same mistake over and over and over again, right? If they are able to rectify the inconsistencies by being more consistent. In my opinion, I think everybody should get a few freebies. It depends on what those freebies are for, right? So if that person goes out and cheats on you, that's a totally different story. Or if that person is lying to you and not being trustworthy, that's a completely different story. But freebie in the sense of, maybe they say they're going to come over tomorrow night and then they aren't able to make it. Certain things like that, I think it's important to just have clear communication about what happened and be able to move on from that circumstance in that situation. The fourth thing here is understanding the reality of commitment. I think a lot of people fantasize about what commitment actually means. And I think a lot of people have this kind of fairy tale notion of what commitment is. Commitment is hard work. right? It's dirty, it's gritty, but it's also rewarding and fulfilling and exciting and stable and feels good as well. So understanding that in order to maintain a commitment within a relationship, that requires a level of discipline. And that discipline means that there has to be a level of drive and determination and self-motivation to be able to sustain and maintain a healthy relationship long term. So we got to get real about what commitment means, right? There's going to be conflict. There are going to be issues. There's going to be low points in your relationship. There are going to be dark periods because life is about balance, right? You cannot have light without dark and vice versa. So committing to that person, committing to yourself that you are willing to work through whatever it is that you need to work through to make that relationship work is important. Now, I want to clarify something as well. That is also nuanced in the sense of if you are in a toxic dynamic with somebody and you're in an unhealthy relationship and you continue to try to make that relationship work, at that point, commitment is not something that you want to focus on. Sure, actually, I take that back. You do want to commit to something. You want to commit to yourself. You want to commit to protecting yourself, to prioritizing yourself, to maintaining your sense of self-identity and autonomy. Because if all of those things have been stripped from you in your relationship, then committing to this person is not the right move. If you're putting yourself out there and you're on a dating app, you want to make sure that you are reading the profiles. You want to make sure that the individuals that you are matching with, that their prompts, their photos, the way that they present themselves is aligned with what you are looking for. Do not swipe on somebody just because you think they're hot. Do not swipe on somebody just because you like the car that they drive and they're putting it on their profile. Like, those are all superficial reasons to date. And that's why a lot of people find themselves in a pattern of failed relationships or in a pattern of hookups because you're not prioritizing the right things. Please read the profiles. Make sure that you are aligned when it comes to your goals. If you start communicating with somebody, if you start chatting with somebody, make sure that you're asking the right questions. And if you don't know what those right questions are, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you and help you along that journey of dating because I know it's hard. I know it is not easy. I know it is incredibly frustrating. Trust me, I have been there. And I have been in a happy, committed relationship now for 2.5 years with my partner. And a lot of the things that I talk about, I applied myself, and I've applied it with other clients who have found success in dating. Again, I hope you guys found this to be helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.